All right, I'm Mike Moranto for Wildcats.com and happy to be joined by alumnus Kyle Clifford here today, former dual sport athlete here at Daemen, double graduate as well, 2014 bachelor's degree in healthcare studies, added a master's in athletic training in 2015, played in the men's soccer and men's basketball teams here between 2010 and 2015. Kyle, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Coach?
I'm doing fine. Thanks for being here. Let's get right into your playing career. You're one of the most celebrated men's soccer players in program history. 30 goals, 68 points in your 4-year career. Before switching your focus over to basketball, while you were continuing your studies. So let's start with soccer, man. Tell me about the experience. How did you become such a prolific scorer here for our men's soccer team?
Oh man, that's a great question. I just remember my freshman year. I wasn't really much of a scorer in terms. I only scored 2 goals that year. But really, when Coach Spicone took over my sophomore year, that's when it really started to hit me that my responsibility was to score, at all costs. And that was probably my best season. I think I had 16 goals in 16 games, and really like being kind of the focal point of the offense, and having my teammates really help me through that. Was a huge step for me. Especially as a sophomore. I had a ton of good midfielders and great defenders that really helped me get to the level I was at during my sophomore year. Practices were really, really intense, and I really loved them. Practices, practice like you play like you practice. And that was one thing that I really, really tried to focus on when we went throughout each season. My junior year, I kind of had a little injury problem with my hamstring, so I only scored 2 goals that year. It was a really frustrating year. A lot of adversity that year with a lot of things, not only just wins and losses, but just trying to get back to like a normal self. And I never really had that extra gear that I normally had. Especially when attacking. Something that was what separated me from, like the defenders. I wasn't fancy, wasn't big on moves, but, the speed is what kind of helped me get through. And obviously my teammates feeding me the ball in certain spots and whatnot. So junior year was pretty tough. But, I kind of brought it back pretty well, and we played some ECC teams my senior year. We had 8 graduating seniors that year, which is almost like unheard of this around now, but it was the senior year really reeled it in, and it was awesome. And the best part about my senior year, we beat Buff State and Roberts Wesleyan that year, and those are 2 rivals that we really couldn't get over the hump my first 3 years. And those 2 games were just, I'll never forget those ones. So obviously, 30 goals is great, but those 2 wins really, really stand out with my teammates, because I just remember the first 3 years and even just the feel, as you're coming onto the team as a freshman and you're hearing everything. And, obviously Buff State's right down the street. Roberts is our conference rival. And, it was really nice to really get those 2 wins against those 2 teams. And that's what really stands out to me. Obviously just the relationships that I built over those 4 years with the soccer guys, and being able to really talk about those 2 games every time I see them, and kind of remember those.
Well, my next question was going to be, what are the moments, is there any moments that stand out? And certainly those were the 2 that I figured you would bring up.
Yeah.
The Buff State game, that was an overtime game. You had the game winner,
if
I remember right. And the Roberts Wesleyan game was an overtime game as well.
Yep.
And I'm pretty sure that was the first time in our program's history that we had ever beaten Roberts Wesleyan.
Yeah, it was phenomenal. I'm getting chills just thinking about it, to be honest with you. That Roberts game, we were tied 2-2, and obviously, this is where we've been before. And, you know, these are the moments where like, oh, Daemen's going to be Daemen and we're going to lose. And, you know, like this, the determination of the guys and those seniors with me, even the underclassmen, just huge. You know, Alex Reed was the one who scored the winning goal.
Right.
And when that ball went in the net, oh my gosh, I can still picture everyone like crashing the field and we're like celebrating. And it was phenomenal. And, even that Buff State game was crazy because their goal was, I mean, you watch the replay and it's clearly offside and we're like, oh my God, here we go again. Like this is like the feeling. And we're like, come on. And so we go to overtime and we obviously, you know, we win the game, and just the celebration with the guys. And, you know, we had a thing like anytime I scored, I would run away from them. So I would, you know, it was just, it was pretty awesome. It was pretty awesome.
Now you mentioned the senior class that you graduated with for men's soccer, and before we started this interview, we were just catching up, and you mentioned that you guys kind of have a group text line. You know, who are the guys that you developed those relationships with, that you stay in contact with?
Yeah, in that group text, there's Jared Contreras, who's now the head football coach or football athletic trainer at SMU. Josh Radecki, he lives down in Jamestown as a PA. But those are the only soccer guys in there. But it's funny because Sean Hellingman, his birthday's today. I just messaged him on Facebook, so we're actually texting back and forth. You know, Trevor is obviously in Canada. Zach's married to another Daemen soccer girl, just had a kid. So I keep in touch with all those guys, and the senior class was just, I mean, I still keep in touch, and they're really good friends.
So then, you know, Kyle, you came in 2010 as a guy that I think had aspirations of being a multi-sport athlete with soccer and basketball. And for whatever reason, the basketball side of it, you know, didn't come for a while.
Right. Yeah.
Tell me about, I kind of know the story because I was there, but, you know, tell me about how you picked basketball back up.
Right. Yeah. I mean, probably one of my favorite stories, probably. I mean, there's too many to pick, to be honest with you, but I mean, this is one of my favorites. You know, my freshman year, you know, there was a spot in the soccer team. I played in high school. I was super happy to be able to play on top of obviously basketball. And, you know, I think in the first couple of years, it was just a little bit too much. And that's just kind of how that, you know, I drifted away from basketball and took on more soccer. Obviously with a successful sophomore year, like I was saying, it just kind of, you know, geared me more towards that track. But obviously I never stopped loving basketball, and you know, I would always play still. You know, we could walk into the Lumsden gymnasium and shoot whenever we want back then, you know, and, the one day I was just shooting around by myself. I had the whole gym by myself. It was amazing. And lo and behold, you and Coach Silveri walk in, and you know, eventually I'm just like shooting around. You guys are like watching me for 15, 20 minutes, if I remember correctly. And then you guys called me over, and you were just kind of explaining how you had a trip down to Florida, and you guys needed another practice player. And I was like, absolutely, sign me up. And that's kind of how I got back into that. And obviously you guys liked me enough to bring me back the next year. So I was pretty happy about that. And the rest is history.
Well, you came in first year in the ECC, and we end up winning the regular season conference championship, which is kind of unheard of. And, you know, you didn't play a ton that year. But then really the following year is when you really came into your own, Kyle, basketball wise, taking advantage of that fifth year of eligibility to play a second sport.
Yeah.
You know, you end up being a double figure scorer for us that year. Helped us win the USCAA national championship. And you actually, I don't even know if you know this, but you ended your career in the top 10 all time in 3-point field goal percentage, and that your 3-point shooting was such a big part of our team there that year in 14-15.
Yeah.
Tell me about the experience. You know, obviously we went through a coaching change that year, and Coach McDonald came in. Tell me about playing for him and the run that we made to that USCAA title game.
Yeah. Yeah, that was pretty. The transition. Obviously, I love Coach Mack. And the transition was such a shock. You know what I mean? And to compliment Coach Mack, he handled it perfectly. Clearly, because we went on to win the USCAA championship, and my experiences with Coach Mack have only been amazing. To say the least. When we were brought on, when he was brought on, and obviously the first couple meetings, you could just really feel like, this is going to be all right. As tough as it was at the time, I think everyone was still pretty determined to, obviously have a good season and not let this change hold us back, obviously. But man, it was such a different season compared to like junior to senior, in good ways, no bad ways, really, just different, and it was, I learned just as much, if not more. And the experiences were awesome, especially like really, really being into the ECC at that point, especially coming off a season where we were regular season champions. But also because we did lose 4 very prominent seniors the previous year. And, that was a pretty big deal, for the program itself. And for us to kind of, take on that challenge of kind of redefining, our restructuring our team was pretty challenging, to say the least. And it was also a lot of fun. It was so much fun with those guys my senior year. The underclassmen were great. They're great kids at the time, and they listened to the seniors, and that's why we gelled so much. I think that's a huge thing to have, upperclassmen and underclassmen relationships. And Coach Mack just knew how to piece all that together, especially during a challenging time like that. And by the mid-season, at least for me and everyone else, we felt like it was just another new season. And obviously then we get to the USCAAs, we're ranked number 1. We've been ranked number 1 the previous 2 years, and we haven't been able to kind of finish the job. And obviously for me as a senior to help get us over that hump and finally win a championship for that was, again, I always picture that post-game picture of us, and it's just I always wish I could go back to that moment. That's probably one of my favorite basketball moments of all time. And it was, we blew that team out too. Like it wasn't even close from the beginning. We shot super well that game, and it didn't matter who we were playing. We weren't gonna lose.
Absolutely, that's you're taking me back too. It was definitely one of the better memories that I've ever had. So, let's get into what you've been doing since graduation. You stuck around for a while. Got hired here, worked as an assistant athletic trainer and strength and conditioning coach here in our department. But 2019, you make the decision. And I'm wondering how much of a leap of faith this was. You kind of had. You're established in your position here at that point, but you had been kind of working towards something, and a company called Impact Fitness Systems. You kind of switch your focus and moved over there. Tell me about what you're doing for them now, and like I said, how much of a leap of faith was that for you at the time?
Yeah. I think the leap of faith was a big leap for sure, but also like a confident one. It was a time where I was part-time at IFS, while being full-time at Daemen, and that was difficult in and of itself, but it was definitely manageable. And thanks to obviously Jeff Sage, who was obviously my boss at the time, and Bridget Nyland at the time too. They were very supportive of me doing that. But I was just shown an opportunity to, kind of expand my career in a different way that I'd never really thought I could. I always loved the sports performance side of things, but my first love was obviously athletic training. And going from thinking after graduation, thinking, okay, I'm just going to be an athletic trainer the rest of my life. What I mean? And then getting the opportunity to be an athletic trainer for for the program I was just a part of not only a year ago. So I was the assistant athletic trainer for the men's soccer program, but also being able to be the first sports performance coach for my alumni. What I mean, was awesome. It was also like something I would have never thought was even a possibility. And so those years were I loved them. I loved every single minute at Daemen. Even the long hours, like there's always going to be those long days and those tough days, but that comes with any job. I don't care what you're doing. I don't care if you can pick your job. If you can pick one, you're still going to have those tough and long days that just are just they just grind you. But I was given that opportunity to go part time, and eventually it kind of morphed into the possibility of me going full time. And yeah, it was definitely a leap of faith. But because of my relationships with Tom, Maggie, and Alexis, my other business partners, it was also a relatively easy decision to move to that. It wasn't easy to move away from Daemen though.
I got
I miss all the athletes. I follow all the Instagram accounts for all the teams still. I follow along with the Twitter feeds as well. Like I'm always trying to stay in touch as much as possible with Daemen, obviously through all the things that we're going through right now. The leaving Daemen was very difficult, but it was also in the same sense, an easy decision because I was so confident in the business that we are, in the company that we've kind of created. And since then, I kind of moved into and ran two branches at IFS. One was called team training. Team training is basically sports performance for teams. We also did small groups as well as private clients, and then the other branch was basketball branch. So I actually I'm the head coach for the skills training for individuals, small groups. I have teams coming in, and it's just like sports performance. I'll talk to the coach. What skills do you want to work on? I obviously put together a plan, and then we implement it. And so those two branches I've been running since I went full time, and I've just been loving it. And in recent weeks, we've actually brought on someone to take over team training, and I'm now only going and working with basketball. And it's just kind of crazy to think about that. You're going through school, and you're getting a master's in athletic training. Never ever thought I would be able to make a living off of training kids in basketball. And here I am in 2020, just a sole skills trainer for youth and high school kids, and it's just amazing. It really is. It's awesome, and I really couldn't be happier. And now that I can really focus on one thing, that's been pretty awesome, because there's always been two responsibilities that I've had. What I mean? Like with sports, I was playing soccer and basketball at one time. When I, obviously got hired at Daemen, I was doing athletic training and sports performance. Then I got hired at IFS, I was doing team training and basketball. Now I can really, kind of zone in on just being a basketball trainer, and that's going to be really, really fun. And obviously I've been developing things, for a while, but it's very exciting.
Last question for you, Kyle. You are someone that really has embraced and promotes a vegan lifestyle.
Yeah.
Your Twitter account is @BigVegDog. Tell me about that. How did that come about, and why do you feel like that's such an important thing for you to embrace?
Right. Oh man, that's a great question. Yeah, I was never really exposed to it, during my college years, even some of my professional years. But my current girlfriend, she was vegan when I met her, and the first year of us dating was just a lot of conversations, about the lifestyle and whatnot, and I think a lot of it was just not an understanding of what it really meant. And eventually, obviously, I started to do my own research. I did, all the things that were kind of necessary that I thought were necessary for me to kind of really figure out what this was all about, because this is a big part of her life. And, not only was I doing it for her, but I was like, okay, this is something that obviously is important for her, but why is it important for her and why is it not important for me? And as I looked into it, it was clear to see, this is definitely something that I think not only I should do, but everyone should be doing. And so I have embraced it wholeheartedly. It's a very big part of my life. It's a very important part of my life as well. And I think, my biggest thing is just to promote it in the most positive ways, because, veganism has a shtick about, being too extreme and whatnot. And it's not, it's actually, something that's very, very easy. Especially when you just give it some time to just look into for yourself. So since then I've kind of created a 30-day program called Journey 30, and it's just me coaching people through 30 days, and it's basically every day is a step. And it doesn't have to be in 30 days. You don't have to do every day in sequential order. But I have kind of designed it to help people get through and kind of just learn more about it. So you don't even it's not even like you have to go vegan in 30 days. You don't have to go vegan, after the program. But I do think that if someone does go through the program, they give their whole heart to it. They will kind of understand, that eventually they're going to make this decision for themselves. And I just think it's a really important thing for people, to kind of, it's a tough thing to think about, when you're not vegan, but when you're vegan, it's like, how have I not been vegan my whole life? And I think that's the biggest thing that I always tell people is like, if you knew me, I ate anything under the sun. And here I am now, and everyone says I can't go vegan until they go vegan. And so it's just a positive thing. It's definitely something I've embraced, and something that I hope people kind of notice me doing, and just research for themselves, and just kind of do little steps, whether it's the 30 that I program or just within your own journey. That's kind of my biggest thing is everyone's on their own journey. Mine took a whole year. I didn't go vegan until for a whole entire year. So it's not fair for anyone to say, well, you should go vegan today. Obviously that would be great, but that's just not how it works. But when you learn the things in a certain way and really take it to heart, it's definitely a super easy transition, and it's a very, very fulfilling one.
Well, your passion for it is evident. Just like your passion for Daemen is pretty evident, and your passion for your work with Impact Fitness Systems. I think we'll end it there, Kyle. I want to thanks for taking the time to be with me today. He's the Executive VP of Operations for Impact Fitness Systems Basketball, and one of the top dual sport athletes we've ever had here at Daemen. So, Kyle Clifford, thank you much, my friend.
Thank you, Coach. Appreciate it. Good seeing you.
You too.
All right, we'll talk to you later.
Bye-bye.